Hi, I wanted to show you something that I have made for use with Air Manager in my flight simulator. And as you can tell, it's just a knob. Now, I made one of these earlier, and you may have seen that video. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube. But the first try, I took the guts of a mouse and just modified it with a shaft, tried to hook a shaft in to turn the encoder that was in the thing, and it worked okay, but it wasn't very durable because I had to glue something onto that wheel, a shaft, and then try to put the knob on there. So I bought a rotary encoder quite a while ago, and it's been sitting in my shop for a long time, and I decided, well, let's see if I can do this. Now, I soldered it basically into the three leads from the rotary encoder in where the encoder was, and then took the two leads for the push button that's also on the knob. See, it has a rotary turn, and it also has a push function. So I wired that up to the mouse button, and I'll explain later how I want to use that and how it can really, I think it can really make the touch screen experience even better for Air Manager. But basically what I did was I took the guts of a mouse. Now this one, I found out those wires that the power wires are extremely fragile. So actually the mouse that I ended up using was one that had a plug-in power connector, kind of like what you see on this one here. As you can see, I went through quite a few mice to finally get this thing worked up. I found out I'm not a very good solderer. I don't know if it has to do with my age or what, but man, you got to be really steady to find these little solder joints down on the back. I mean, they're pretty small. I mean, you know, if I put my finger there, you get the idea how small those puppies are. So it was difficult, but after 3 or 4 tries, I finally got it to work. Now, I've already screwed this all together, and I'm going to demo it here shortly. But it's just basically a mouse where the scroll wheel is here, and the mouse is there. And that's all that we really need to add quite a bit of functionality, I think, to the experience with Air Manager. So let's go into the simulator and I'll show you how it works in action. Okay, we're in the my simulator. I got the three 49-inch monitors. They're 4K, but I'm running them at 1080 because my video card can't drive all 3 of them. And I'm running just forward with view only with no cockpit because I have my Air Manager Eclipse Jet cockpit. You can see where I mounted the knob that I just showed you. I mounted it down here in a good location. I actually before I put it in, I mounted it to a board so that it could be screwed down on the desk and give me a nice, stable, solid use of the knob. Now, as I have it in touch control now, and as you may know, let's go to look at the heading. If I touch the heading knob and then move my hand around it, you can see the heading bug moving down there, right? But notice I have to keep myself symmetrical. What happens if I look away and look down at the bug and see what happens? It just jimmies back and forth because I'm not rotating around it. I have to go around the axis to make it turn. So it does take a little bit of extra work to make that happen. You have to kind of be looking at 2 places. Normally, when you're flying, you would look to find the knob, touch the knob, grab it, and then once you grab it, you would just turn the knob, and you could keep your eyes focused on watching the heading bug move as it's moving until you get it where you want. So it does require a little bit of looking, especially if the knob's not in your field of view when you're looking down at the, for example, the HSI here. So that's a small problem with Air Manager. I love the touch control. I think it's fantastic, but I would like to have some way to have a physical knob, because that knob is really is the only thing I don't think is perfectly realistic about touch control. It's great, don't get me wrong, and it's harder than actually flying, but I'd like to have a knob. The other small problem with touch control is this. Let's look at this this stack knob. As you can see, there's an inner knob and an outer knob. If I touch the inner knob, it gets highlighted and I can change the frequency there. And if I want to touch the outer knob, I have to touch the outer knob. But it does require a little bit of effort in I would really like to be able to do this with a little more ease. That's one of the problems with when you stack knobs up. So we got this knob down here, and now I'm going to switch back. The knob won't do anything, obviously, because we're in touch control now. But I'm going to switch back to, and I'll just show you I can turn the yaw damper on and off, and so on. I can turn the switches with my fingers. Yeah. So it's very realistic and very easy to use. Now, I'm going to stop for a second here, and I'm going to turn it back into, I'm going to turn on the normal mouse control. Now we're in touch control now. We're going to switch to mouse control. Okay, so now we're back into mouse control. Now with mouse control, you can see what happens if I hover over the heading select knob here. You can see what happens. It turns into a plus or minus depending on the side. And notice with the scroll wheel, I can make that move. Pushing the scroll wheel forward or backwards will turn the heading, and it actually doesn't matter which side you're on. You can see I can change the heading back and forth. Well, the cool thing is now, watch this. All I have to do is just touch the heading knob and then reach down to my little knob here. And then as I turn the knob, watch what happens. I've got complete control. So I'm just using almost like touch control. And the cool thing is that even without touch control on, if I touch the yaw damper, you can see it goes on and off. It works pretty much the same. Now there are a few things that don't work quite as well without touch control, but by and large it works great. Now you can see, like let's say I want to set the altitude to for takeoff. I touch the altitude control just to select it, and when I take my finger up, the mouse stays there, so I can grab my knob and start turning it, and you can see the altitude going up, and I can set it, or let's say set it at 9,000 feet. So there's 9,000 feet, and I did that with the knob. It's much more realistic because I can keep my vision focused on this and just turn that knob and have my hand on it. So it really adds a whole lot of functionality, and all it takes is one little knob. Now I'm going to explain what I'd like to see happen to make this work even better in the future, and that would include taking advantage of the function, the click function. Now look at, I got turned on the auto throttle, right? Now if I touch it, it goes off, but the mouse stays where I last touched it. So you can see me turning it on. I'm pushing. All I'm doing is pushing this knob in, and you can see it's coming on and off. So the mouse function will work. But what I would like to see is for these stack knobs to have some way that if I just touch the general knob, that I could push this button and cycle from the largest to the next smallest to the next smallest. Because some radios like ADFs actually have 3 stack knobs. And sometimes we have to design these knobs with enough space so that they're not really realistic looking. We have to make enough space so that we can get our fingers on the little band, you know. Because if I have to touch between the inner knob and the outer knob, and if they're like a Garmin GPS, it's an 1/8 of an inch, you know, and it's very difficult. But if I could select those, so what I'm proposing is a whole new mouse control. Call it maybe scroll touch or something like that, where we would get a highlighting of the knobs, much like we do with touch control, except maybe make it yellow instead of blue. And that would tell us that we're using the knob, or the scroll wheel on a mouse would work fine too. But I think the knob is much more realistic because it looks like what you have in a real airplane. You know, you're turning this knob and it just feels normal. So that's what I'm proposing. I'll show you some a little mock-up here of the how this might look in the cockpit. Now we got to talk Corian into changing this or adding this other function. But we're really not asking for too much, I think. Maybe we can all pitch in and give him a few bucks for his programming time, if you think this is a good idea. But I can show you how to make the mouse. It's not too hard, and we might even be able to make some, get some made someplace if we wanted to, if we wanted to band together and get some manufacturer to make the things for us. Basically, all it is the guts of an old mouse in a rotary encoder, and that's the whole thing. So I would anticipate having a new selection, something probably called scroll touch or something like that, that would be an addition to mouse and touch selections on the settings menu. And this would allow us to enter a mode where the dials and the rotary switches would operate just like they do now in the mouse mode. Of course, without the icon, the mouse icon, and would only respond not to clicks but only to the scroll wheel input, which would be provided by the knob that I've built. Now we would see a different color to let us know or remind us that we're using that knob input, and I propose we use yellow. Once the dial was highlighted, you could turn it by using the knob as I have built, or you could use a scroll wheel as well. So this would be pretty much a hybrid between the touch system and the way the dials and rotary switches operate with respect to the mouse, only for those controls. Now for switches that were stacked upon each other, once a switch is selected, pushing the button on the knob or clicking the mouse button would cycle through the switches that whenever a switch is contained within the bounds of another switch. So as you cycle through the switches, as each switch is selected, you'd have the ability to set the switch using the knob or the scroll wheel on the mouse. So for dials that have buttons on top, like the Garmin, we could just place a button on top and a layer above and just have it operate just like it does right now. Should be no problem. So anyway, let me take it up in the air. I'll level off, and then I'll just run the autopilot with the knob a little bit and then show you how it works. Okay, so here we are at about 1,800 feet, flying out over northwest someplace, near Seattle, I think. Now I'm gonna, as you can see, I have the knob down here, and what I'm gonna do is I got it set in heading select, and I'm just going to start turning the knob here. You can see the knob is responding there. I don't have heading select on. Okay. Yeah, I got this figured out. Okay, so we're in heading select. You can see that it's responding to the mouse. I'll turn the mouse back. As long as I touch the mouse, it responds. Change the altitude, just touch the altitude button, turn the knob, take it up to, let's say, 3,000 feet. And I'll hit altitude change, here again using my finger. You can see it goes into a level change, and it's on its way up. It'll level off at 2,000, 3,000, there it is, 500 to go. And it'll level right off at 3,000 feet. So anyway, you get the idea. It's a way to control the autopilot with a knob that's much more realistic, very minimal investment, and I think it would add some functionality on the stacked knobs too, if we could do that. So even if we don't have a change in the programming, this still works quite well. And just using it in the mouse mode, I think it enhances the realism of Air Manager. So I would be interested to hear what you have to think about it. I can tell you from many years of flying real airplanes that I find that adding that knob makes a real big difference in how realistic it feels and how much easier it is to not have to be paying attention to where my finger is as I use touch control. Like I said, touch control is a million times better than using a mouse, but I think this might be one way to take it just a little bit further and at a very minimal cost. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it would be worth pursuing trying to get this changed in our programming, and also see if anyone's interested in trying to build a few of these mouses that are with a rotary knob that might be it can be much smaller than what I built, because you saw the size of that board, and the encoder is very small, so it really wouldn't take much size of a box, and it could even be made so that it could be mounted on the monitor, maybe at the top of the monitor or the side of the monitor, or mounted with a desk stand too. Give me your feedback. Thanks for watching.